Happy Friday.
Happy Friday, everyone. It's Friday Fire.
It's time for some tough love.
I know.
I feel like we need like just a special Friday Fire jingle.
I know. We'll come up with one. Who knows? Some tough love song. Maybe one of my rap songs that I like listening to. I really like heavy rap.
I've had a few people reach out to me on Instagram that they do know it's Friday then, Saturday, Sunday. What?
I heard that the other day, actually.
I'm telling you, maybe I just heard it before it was like popular amongst other people. But
no, I know. I actually heard it the other day. Anyways, we wanted to talk today because I think that we need to address some justifications that we make sometimes. We have to talk about the reasons we use for why we don't adhere to something, or we don't follow through on a commitment that we make for ourselves. And I think that a lot of these are societal, which makes it very hard. Like, just because it's common doesn't mean it's normal, I think, in these extents. And the first one that I want to go through is your period and your need to overconsume chocolate.
Yes.
Because we have to address this.
Yeah.
It needs to come out, guys.
Well, first we have to understand that our period is our report card. And if you are having horrible PMS symptoms, there's other things going on that you really need to address. Like, you should not be heavy bleeding for multiple days, having horrible cramps, having all of these cravings. Like, I think some of it is psychological,
totally,
right? And some of it is, you know, emotional and mental, and just like the physiological response that we just kind of turn into other things and like rationalize.
Totally.
So let's understand, like, when we are going through the two phases of our cycle. So our follicular phase in the beginning half of our cycle, and our
luteal phase
in the second half. What we have to, understand is that in the second half here, in the latter part, or your luteal phase, like, your progesterone is going to rise, and that does increase hunger. But this is also when you might notice these PMS, symptoms show up, and your mood starts to take a hit, your motivation and kind of just like your drive for life starts to, wean out, and you're not motivated to go to the gym. Maybe you're doing things more like yoga or just lower intensity things, which is what we tell our clients to do. But here's the kicker. You're also more sensitive to insulin, and resistant to insulin. And so when you are consuming all of this chocolate and these carbs and your air quote, cravings that you're giving into, you're pretty much storing all those things as fat because your body is not utilizing it as well.
And I'm not saying like go push yourself and run the marathon on your period and like do these crazy things and eat plain vegetables and chicken all the time. I just think that we take this a bit far sometimes. Like, we need to understand what the body's response is and why we might be having these cravings and how we can manage them too. And we're not going to go too deep into this. Obviously, this isn't like a podcast on PMS and our cycle.
But we do have one, which you should listen to, because we talk about that.
That is true. That is true.
And I think for a lot of our clients, I'm very proud of, I would say, almost all of our clients, after listening to that educational podcast that we did in regards to training and nutrition, they've adjusted it and they feel so much better, and they're just crushing their fat loss phases throughout, their cycle, because they're aligning their cycle along with obviously us helping them.
And then you're not beating yourself up either.
Right.
Because if you aren't aware of your cycle and how you're supposed to feel, because you guys, leading into your period, you are going to be more tired. Like, if your period is normal and you have hormones that are going through the body, you're going to feel more tired. And so you shouldn't be pushing as hard. Your body's not going to respond to those things as well. You should tailor back your training a little bit. You should try to, especially if you're like heavy strength training, you should try to cater lighter weeks, deload weeks, maybe more steady state cardio type stuff on those weeks to balance that. But we need to know why PMS is even happening in the first place. And it's usually driven by an imbalance of our hormones, mainly estrogen. When estrogen is high, or in relative comparison to progesterone, it's high, meaning like maybe we have low progesterone, versus dominant estrogen. There tends to be higher levels of inflammation within the body, which in turn impact our cramps, our headaches, our mood. All of these things will change because when we have our periods, inflammatory hormones that are called cytokines get released into your body. And so if there's already higher levels of inflammation in the body going on, of course your cramps are going to be worse. Of course you're going to have heavier bleeding. Of course you're going to deal with headaches. And so these things just make them worse, but there's things that kind of cause these. And so Diets rich in sugar, refined carbohydrates, non-organic meat, conventional dairy products, so not like grass-fed or, whole food-based dairy products. Caffeine can even promote hormone imbalances, whereas the opposite is true for managing balancing of hormones. Low diets, diets low in refined carbs, whole unprocessed foods are the dominance of your diet. Lots of fiber, lots of vegetables, lots of healthy fats. We also need to talk about stress, environmental pollutants. Those all can drive things. And how do we manage this? Like, okay, if we know that all of these things can cause these symptoms, all of these things can cause PMS and worse, symptoms per se, how do we manage them?
Yeah. So I think number one is, look at your food quality.
Totally.
And look at how much are you consuming of those one ingredient whole foods relative to what you're consuming in processed foods? Because I do think that there's this level of people saying well, I'm eating this in moderation, but then it's becoming 200 or 300 calories every day that you're eating, air quote, things in moderation, but we're lacking fiber too. And fiber is really, really important. Fiber will actually help your body detox excess estrogen. And so if you're not consuming enough fiber, there's not fiber to be able to bind to those toxins and excrete them. Same thing if you're using, BPAs a lot, or you're heating your food in plastic Tupperwares and you're getting, more exposures to these toxins, and you're not eating a diet high in fiber, you're not able to detoxify those, exposures. Same thing too when we talk about digestion and constipation, right? Constipation keeps your body from releasing estrogen, and that will cause some estrogen dominance, which can also in turn cause PMS symptoms to worsen. Same thing here with alcohol consumption, right? Alcohol can inhibit your liver from processing estrogen. Your liver is responsible for processing estrogen, other excess hormones, cholesterol, other sugars in the body, as well as other various toxins that you are exposed to. And so it's really important that you do your due diligence if you're experiencing a lot of these symptoms to help clean things up, give your body the support from one ingredient whole foods, a lot of fiber, remove some of these plastics, BPAs and all of the things that you're exposed to in terms of your skincare, hair care. But then also make sure that you are managing through some of these times and look ahead, track your cycle, know when your cycle is coming. I know, and I'm very in tune with my body. When my cycle is coming, cool, I'll flip my fats up and we'll go a little bit higher fat for the week leading into the start of my period. And I'll do things like cocoa powder, coconut bombs, fat bombs, things like that are still going to bring my body energy and nutrients while helping me fulfill some of these sweeter, cravings. But I'm not going off the walls eating ice cream and chocolate chip cookies and my body was just telling me that I was craving these things. So I ate 5 chocolate chip cookies every day, but yet I still say that I have fat loss goals. We got to get in line with our body, right?
Yeah.
We got to get in tune here. And I think it all starts with knowing your cycle and then 2, aligning your nutrition, and really increasing your fiber. Because if you start doing those few things, can kind of offset some of these rationalizations that you are.
Yeah. I love when all of our clients tell us my periods aren't as heavy. I'm not dealing with as many symptoms. I don't have as bad of cramps. My cravings have gone down. Those are all signs that our body is functioning at a better place. And like Liz was saying, you guys, think about it, if every month you're using 3 to 5 days as a reason to consume things that are probably not working well with the body at the time because of how that hormone is affecting your insulin sensitivity levels, that could throw us for a huge loop with our weight loss goals. So we just wanted to talk about the justifications that we make sometimes around our period. Guys, being a girl is hard. We get that. We are both women. We both deal with these things too, but we have to be real. You are not, chained to a bed in this horrible pain being chocolate's the only thing that's going to fix it. Chocolate's honestly probably making it worse. It's probably raising inflammation levels, making these things kind of worsen to an extent. Small amounts of dark chocolate definitely can help.
Cocoa powder
is great. But we don't need to be eating the box of 6 cupcakes because we're on our period type thing. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'm really excited. We're going to have Dr. Haley Schaff on in a few weeks. And I was thinking back, and I was telling Becca this the other day, I went on hormonal birth control when I was 14 because my period was so bad. You guys, I would lay on the floor with my feet up on the bed.
Absolutely.
Heating pads, Tylenol, Motrin,
take off
ibuprofen.
school.
Yeah. And like, I wish that I knew now what I didn't know then, or I knew then what I know now. That's what I'm saying. Because I was eating shit. Like my food quality was horrible.
And
like,
also as a young child, you're
don't
going to
know.
be going through hormone shifts. Like that is totally normal when you are younger to have really bad periods because your body's regulating itself.
but there's still so many things that I could have done nutritionally. And so I hope that I have a little girl someday so I can help her, navigate that storm better, because we didn't know any better then.
Yeah,
and so, instead the solution was to go on birth control, which is something, a different topic for a different day. But this is, again, where like the problem that we see is just masking. We're just always trying to mask these symptoms. And I think this is another thing that when we talk about like the rationalizations, we start to like justify, well, I'm not going to start, any new program or any new diet or, whatever until the next event is over, until this like summer vacation is over, or JoJo's wedding, or Colleen's, graduation. And it's like, here's the thing. There's always going to be events. There's always going to be something that is upcoming that you think, is a justification for you not focusing on yourself and your health today.
Yep.
And if that's the way that you're living your life, you're never going to get to your goals, because you're always going to be utilizing some other reason for you not to start. And you don't have to be perfect. Like maybe you go to that event and that that's a planned deviation, or that, you are going to indulge in, a couple of things, but you're going to try your best not to make it as indulgent as it might've been 3 or 6 months ago, so that you can keep progressing forward towards
Absolutely.
your goals.
Those things should be part of your life. Those things should be part of your plan with your goals. Like you don't have to wait until after a wedding or after, a vacation to start working towards your goals. They should be part of your goals. You want to learn how to incorporate a day-to-day that allows you to progress through those things, guys. Like if we're still in the mindset of, I can't start until after this because that is, a YOLO situation, then we're going to be stuck for a long time. Like we need to change the mindset that's going on. Instead of us waiting until these things happen, say, no, I can start making changes now. And even if that day is a total shit show, even if I do have 15 drinks at the wedding, like it's one day. It is one day, and you can get back into those habits that you've been improving upon and have it be probably less impactful than it would have been if you had just decided to, wait until after that time. And then it probably would have spiraled into maybe a few more days, maybe a week or two. And then you would have found some other event to wait until, or start some restrictive diet to do until. And then it's just this cycle and repeats and repeats. And we see this all the time. And so we need to learn how to make these things in our life part of our life that is a healthy life, versus this up and down of our weight, of our mood, of our energy, of our confidence levels, because that is where the problem lies. Like we need to change the mindset aspect around you. You can't just wait until life works for you, because life is never going to work perfect for you guys.
No.
It never is.
And I think this is where, you can start to look at it from a different perspective and look at like every day is an opportunity. I've said before on the podcast, like every meal, every snack is a choice for you to make, a good choice. It's an opportunity for you to choose nourishing foods, or to choose things that, maybe you want in the moment, that instant gratification, but don't align with your goals. And so it's the same thing with every day as we navigate life and we navigate the stress of life. And a lot of what our clients will tell us sometimes is like, they feel so much better about how they're handling the stress that's being thrown their way, because they're showing up for themselves, because they're showing themselves that they are a priority and that they can do the hard work and that their goals matter. They become more resilient to stress, which is really, really cool, because, this is one thing that we've had a handful of clients. Obviously, I'm not going to go into their personal stories, go through some really, really hard times this week, whether it's job related or relationship related, breakup related, divorce, whatever. Some of them are going through some like the trenches. And one thing I'm so proud of them for is that, they all have said, I have felt so much better throughout this process because I'm continuing to show up for myself and I'm continuing to focus on me and my goals. I'm not going to let this derail me. I'm not going to let someone else rob me of my joy and the things that I'm deserving of in my life. And in turn, they're like, I feel like I'm not an emotional wreck the way that I would be if I wasn't walking this path and I wasn't on this journey.
And they've gotten back into routines faster. They've gotten into things that make them feel good faster, because we've been able to identify those things that do make them feel good in the journey. And so, I totally agree with Liz. When I am showing up for myself and I'm in a good routine and I'm treating my body well, I'm so much more resilient to stress than when I'm not. Like, it is a slippery slope with stress, and it can just make you feel worse and worse. And so if stress is your reason why you're not making changes for yourself or why you're not fitting in the time for things, start to look at it as like, these things that I need to fit in are going to help me manage this stress better. I need to do these things to be able to get through this parts of life, to get through these different things. You know, I talked a little bit earlier this week on a post that I made around like creating opportunity for good stuff, because we can totally blame our stress. We can blame all of the things in our day to day for why we don't get things done, for why we didn't, you know, have dinner, you know, at home that night and cook at home and eat a nourishing meal, and why we instead just ordered pizza for our family. We can make all the reasons for, you know, I'm stressed and so I'm tired, so I didn't wake up for my workout, and then I haven't worked out at all this week. Like, sure, are there always short times in our life where stress is a little bit higher? Absolutely. And you need to cater to those. You need to adjust to those. But if this is something that you've been using as a reason for like months, if not years, we need to start learning that stress is going to be a part of our lives, and we have to figure out how to live with it versus using it as an excuse as to why we aren't living a life that we want to live at all. And so I totally agree with the stress thing. It's a big reason why a lot of people say that they can't do things. They're just too stressed. I'm too stressed. It's like a badge of honor. I have too much stress going on.
But there's always going to be stress, and there's always going to be bad. I think this is also like, we've talked before about like, we've kind of gotten soft to recognizing like that life is shitty sometimes. Like sometimes there are, you know, situations, whether it is arguments with family or friends or things that just really bother you, or maybe, you know, you reacted to something and you said something that you didn't mean out of spite because you are feeling like tension and stress. Like, recognize this, like every single person has bad in their life in some way. It is how we handle that bad. I think that's what sets people apart, because sure, it's rough. Like, I'll give my, you know, example here of just going to the ER on Sunday night with my son. So we're in the ER for 4 hours. Like, I got like 3 hours of sleep. Like, it was rough. We were tired, but at the end of the day, like, that situation happened, and it didn't, you know, it wasn't an excuse for me the next day to continue just like, woe is me and the bad and like being, you know, at my husband's throat and this and that. It's like, okay, like this happened, like this was a stressful situation, and you know, for everybody that's going to look different, but here's what we're going to do. Here's how we're going to handle it. Like, let's tag team, let's communicate through it. Let's figure out a way that we can still have a good day, still nourish our body, still get our workouts in, still do the things that we need to do and show up for ourselves. Because even though we're tired, even though like, you know, the last thing that I want to do is give myself good, nourishing foods. Like, I know that's going to be the thing that helps me show up better. And so in all of your life situations, whether it is, you know, a sick kid at home, or you are sick, or you've lost a loved one, or you just have an argument with somebody, like, recognize like there is bad, and a lot of people experience those things, but how you navigate the bad and how you handle some of those like bumps in the road or roadblocks, if you will, is going to really make a difference in how you arrive at your destination. Like, if it was just smooth sailing for everybody, it'd be too easy and everybody would always already be there.
It's the concept of like mental grit. Like,
absolutely,
how do you tolerate things that come your way? Do you let them all consume you, or do you take them in stride and say, this sucks, this situation sucks, but what can I still do that make it a good day? What can I still do to make myself feel good? Like Liz was saying, if Liz, you know, didn't consistently prepare food and have food in the house and have a good routine of eating those things, she probably would have fallen to, you know, let's stop and get the bagel and drink all the coffee that day. And like, you know, all of the habits that aren't going to help her feel any better, but because she's made an effort and put in work to work through those things, that mental grit becomes easier. It's a practice, guys. It is something that you have to consistently do, that you have to consistently implement, because it's not just going to show up one day. We have to work at it. We have to keep it in our day-to-day. We have to be conscious of it. And stress is probably one of the biggest ones that I think rides the need for that mental grit. You know, things are always going to happen on a day-to-day. I don't go any day without with no stress hitting me at all. Like, you have to learn how to work through those things, or else they will literally take over your life, and you will live a life that you don't love, and you don't enjoy, and you aren't confident with, and you're just going to blame stress for the rest of your life. So I think sometimes we also blame others. Our husband, our kids, our
coworkers,
friends. They don't live the same lifestyle as me. They don't enjoy the foods. They don't like healthy food.
Peer pressure.
I've talked about, like, my child has not touched a vegetable in the 3 years of his life. I have tried so many times. He refuses them. But I will say, the more and more I consume things around him that are nourishing foods, the more and more he will eat them. Like if I grab an apple and slices of an apple and some pistachios for a snack instead of grab his Cheez-Its and like the things that, I will say are convenience, and I sometimes will bring to restaurants, if they don't have food that he'll eat, stuff like that. But he's going to eat what's in front of him. And this is how children are. They are resilient. And they are also creatures of habit. So the more that we give them things, the more they will consume them. And so we need to be the example for our children. And that's what I look at. Like, I always want to be a good example for Carson. I want to be the reason that he wants to be healthy. He talks about working out. He talks about, the foods that we're eating. And so how can I use that as a driver for me wanting to be good versus an excuse for me not being good?
Well, and I think you show the positive in it too. And so that's one thing that I wanted to kind of close this out with is like, you can either look at life in two ways. I have to do these things, right? Or I get to do these things. And so Becca could, easily say, well, we have to eat our vegetables today. Like, no, we get to eat our vegetables. Like, we are blessed because we can afford these vegetables, right? There's so many different things that this concept can be applied to in your life, whether that is work, whether it is workouts, going to the grocery store, cooking, you name it. Instead of looking at all of these things as a chore and things that like you have to start doing and woe is me and like this sucks and this is hard, look at it as an opportunity. Like, you get to create this opportunity. I get to show up and, go to work today. I get to nourish my body with these whole foods that I'm able to afford. I get to go to the gym and move my body in ways that maybe other people wish that they could, move their bodies. And so looking at everything is, and I guess this is kind of like that glass half full analogy, but like you can always look at things as either positive or negative, right? And the more that we push things off and the more that we rationalize things, the more you're basically just keeping yourself stuck in this negative space that ultimately isn't where you want to be long term. And so let's look at, where can we start to create more of the opportunity? Where can you, challenge yourself to look at things as an opportunity to get to do something and really start to make those small changes and notice, like, try it for a week. How do you feel when you shift these things into perspective? How do you feel when you present things to your kids in a more positive way? And like be encouraging of, apples are so good and they're red, but they're delicious and they have fiber and they give mommy energy and it makes me want to play outside with you. And instead of saying like, no, you have to eat this because this is healthy and no, you can't have the candy bar, right? Like, we are an example, not only to our children, but we're an example to everyone who surrounds us, whether it's our spouse, whether it's our coworkers, your boss. Like, be the light to other people who may not know yet, and really just start to shift your perspective and change some of these justifications, because the longer that you justify, the longer you're going to stay stuck.